listen to this, and I want to harp on this point a lot today. Am I willing to sacrifice what is precious? Aaron talked about this just a little bit ago in the giving part of our service, and this is what I'm going to challenge you to do as a congregation today, myself included, is I'm going to challenge you to sacrifice something. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's financial, something with your finances. Maybe it's your ear to somebody who just desperately needs to talk about something. I don't know what it may be. Maybe it's your help and your service and your time and your energy and your effort. But I'm going to challenge you this week. I want you to take an hour of your work week or your week, and I want you to sacrifice that 1 hour for somebody other than yourself, because we live in a self-consumed world, am I right? A self-consumed nation, to where we get so caught up in our own needs that we neglect the needs of the others. Pastor has said this thousands of times. It's not the fact that there's not enough food to feed everyone in the world. It's the fact that the people with the food don't want to feed the people without the food. And there are needs that go unnoticed and unmet every day because we are a selfish people. And I'm calling it for what it is because I'm consumed with it myself. And we get selfish. We think about what we desire and what we want, and not about what God's calling us to do. If you've ever been in a place in your life where God called you to do something, and I know you've been there, where He called you to do something, and you prayed about it, and you prayed about it, and you prayed about it, and you're like, is this really you, God? Anybody been there? Where you laid in bed and you questioned it for days and days and days. Oh, that's just me. What am I talking about? Man, that's just me talking out of my head. Or, is that you, devil? Now, let me tell you how you know if it's God or the devil. I'm going to tell you real quick. If it's good, and if it's going to help somebody else, guess what? Who do you think it is? I doubt it's the devil. I can tell you that. But if it's a good thing, and not always good things are God things. Let me clear that up real quickly. But I do think that we should examine the voice of the Lord a little bit more and know that, hey, when He speaks, that we obey and that we don't delay. Because delayed obedience is disobedience. Did y'all get that? Delayed obedience is disobedience. And the problem with many Christians in our nation today is that we don't obey God the very moment that He speaks. We wait forever and ever. Why do we do that? Because we're self-consumed. Because we're caught up with ourselves. And I'm going to challenge you to break free of that. Break out of that box to say, you know what? It ain't about me. Because Jesus said this one thing. He said, take up your cross and what? Deny yourself. Am I right? Take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. I believe that today that's exactly what God's calling us to do. Let's look at this passage, Genesis chapter 22, verse 2. It says, then God said, take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him. What? Sacrifice. Say that. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. It took him 3 days to get there. And God said, hey, take your only son, the son that you love, Isaac, and sacrifice him. And He takes these people, and it takes them 3 days. But I love what the Bible says. Whenever God spoke, it says early the next morning that they got up and left. When? Early. Not late. They didn't delay. They didn't waste no time. They got up the next morning. They left early because Abraham was sure that, hey, I'm going to obey God when He speaks to me. And I don't know about you, but if you want to go to another dimension in your relationship with Him, you've got to obey Him when He speaks. And it's going to take everything in you. It's going to be a challenge. And it ain't going to be easy necessarily. But it'll take you to another dimension. I love the fact that Abraham was willing to sacrifice Isaac. What later you find out is that Abraham has an illegitimate son named Ishmael. And Ishmael was not as valuable to Abraham as Isaac was. He wasn't as loved. And the thing that I see in our culture today is that we're good with sacrificing our Ishmaels, but not our Isaacs. Does that make sense? It's easy for us to sacrifice something that's not so precious to us. but not what is precious. And it's a very difficult thing. But I would say this. When you do, there's this freedom that comes with it. And you know if you've been there, if you've sacrificed before in your life, and there's some people in here, you've had to sacrifice, you've had to struggle to make it. Am I right? You ain't got to raise your hand, because here's the deal. God recognizes your sacrifice. God honors your sacrifice. He blesses your sacrifice. At the end of this message, I'm going to tell you a point that I think will bless you today, because here's the deal. At the end of your obedience is your reward. I said at the end of your obedience is your reward. There's something freeing about that. There's something that's peaceful about that. That even when it's uncomfortable and I obey Him, I realize that, hey, there's something at the end of it for me. And God's going to bless me for it. Abraham goes early and he takes Isaac. And he cuts all this wood, because guess what? He prepared. And when you get ready to sacrifice, you're going to have to prepare yourself for it. And if you don't prepare yourself, it's going to hurt you more than it helps you. Do you hear what I said? It's going to hurt you more than it helps you if you don't prepare for your sacrifice. If you just do it. You got to prepare yourself for it. Prepare your heart for it. Prepare your life for it. And at the end of it, you'll see your reward.